Hi everyone, welcome to the Week 8 course notes video, and we're starting some stats with some basic stats. So we kick off by talking about some measures of central tendency, mode, mean and median, which all roughly tell you where the center of the data is. Not strictly true for, say, mode. The mode may not be in the center, but it tries to give you a useful summary of the bulk of the data. Okay. So we're going to go through the definition of these with some data sets. We're talking about a data set A, which is just 6, 3, 10, 1, 3, 9, and data set B, which is 4, 6, 7, 2, 5. Okay, fair enough. Now the mode. The mode is the score that occurs most often. So I've always thought of mode as in like the word modern fashion, popular, that sort of thing. It's the most popular, it's the most commonly occurring number. Now what we normally do is, you can see we don't have to, but we put the scores in order. Like here, I'd rather rewrite this as 1, 3, 3, 6, 9, 10, and set B as 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just putting them in an order. I like to see them that way, just naturally go set here probably. But also just what's the most popular one? It's clear that 3s are the only ones that happen twice. So the mode of set A is 3, as it says here. The mode is 3 because it happened most often. It happened twice, does make the mode 2. It's just asking what number happened the most. Okay, it was 3. Set B doesn't have a mode because no number came up more often than others. And note it's possible to have two modes. I could have a set of data that's 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3. We're looking at very silly small sets of data, but the concept is that's bimodal. There are two modes there. The mode here of this data is 1 and 2. Neither of them is more popular than the other, but both 1 and 2 happen more than 3. So you can have more than one mode, like here. You can have no mode, or here you can have a single mode. Okay, so there's the definition of mode. Like I said, the mode doesn't have to be in the center of the data. Often it will be, but it doesn't have to be. Look at this example, 1, 1, 1, and then I can write all sorts of 2, 58, 117. I can write more numbers and just, look, the mode's still 1. So you could say that's a pretty poor measure of central tendency, but it depends what you're using the numbers for. What might be the most interesting summary of this data is that 1 happened a lot, okay? And that's what the mode tells us. All right, mean's the most common measure of central tendency because mean and average are exactly the same thing, and we've all used the term average, I think, in whatever context in real life. I'll just delete this. Control A, delete. Don't need to narrate it. So how do we work out the mean? Well, same way we worked out the average. We add them all up and divide by the number of scores. Now there's some notation coming here, which is good to get to know as we go through stats, what some of these things mean. Firstly, you can see that little bar on top of the X. We call that X bar, okay? X bar is a term that not just we, but maths people in general and stats people call that X bar. It's an X with a bar on top. What does it mean? It means mean, okay? Mean, average. Put a bar on the top and suddenly that is what represents the average score, okay? Another symbol here is this one. That's a capital sigma, okay? So it's a Greek letter sigma, the capital version of it. We look at the lowercase version of it later in standard deviation. And all that means is sum. In maths, when you see a sigma thing, like, we don't use it very often in stats. We're going to use it in standard deviation, and we'll use it in mean. And all it means here is add the stuff up. So what this is saying so far, it said X bar A, which is saying the mean of set A, is equal to the sum of all the values, sum of all the X's. Just by default, we call all the numbers in the set, it's like we say they're all X values, okay? So don't be too put off by it. We're not going back to coordinate geometry here where there's an X and a Y. We're just saying, look, all numbers, and we just happen to use X for numbers. So sum up all your numbers and divide by n. Also right here, because I think appears in the notes elsewhere coming up. You might also see the same thing written as sum of x over sum of f. Now there's nothing different there. All that means is sum of f is the sum of the frequencies. Like I could say for that first data set, what we had ones, we had threes, we had sixes, nines and tens. Soon we're going to be able to summarize them and say, well, how many ones do we have? Just one. How many threes did we have? 2, 1, 6, 1, 9 and 1, 10. If I want to know how many numbers there were there, I could have added up all of these and said there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so there's me, the number of data, the number of scores, the number of x values are 6. Or I could have said it's a sum of the frequencies. What's the sum of the frequencies? 1 of these numbers plus 2, that's 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, the sum of the frequencies is exactly the same as the number of scores you've got. So at the moment, n will do the job, but just a heads up that we're going to transfer to sum of f in the near future when we've got a frequency column, but it's exactly the same thing. Yes, the number of scores you've got is a sum of all the frequencies. Okay, more when we get to frequency columns. So we said it's equal to sum of x on n. Let's add up all the numbers. Here we are, adding up all 6 numbers. Clearly we're dividing by 6 because there's 6 of them. Got a 32 on 6, which is 5.3 repeater. Now note that that dot does matter. Don't just call it, I mean that on the calculator wouldn't have come up that way. It would have come up equals 5.33333. Maybe it came up as 5 and a third. Maybe it came up as 16 on 3. These are all the same number. We've just got to know on our calculator. Preferably I'd like a decimal answer to this. The SD button converts between fraction and decimal on the FX 82AUs, but it's not the calculator lesson. Just hassle us stuff if you want to know how to use your calculator better, but it's 5.3 repeater. Another acceptable way would have been to write 5.3 to 1 dp, because 5.3, it's followed by another 3. It doesn't round up to 5.4. Just note, don't just write equals 5.3, okay, because that's not true. The average doesn't equal 5.3. It equals 5.3 repeater. It equals 5.3 rounded to 1 dp. It's okay if you write that. Or I could have said it's equal to 5 and a third. Just watch out for incorrect mathematical statements. This equals 5.3. Not really. Okay, well that's mean. So the average score there was 5.3 repeater, and that makes sense. It's roughly in the middle of the data. Great. And then all the next thing is doing is saying, well, just do it again. It's the sum of all the scores over the number of scores. There was only 5 scores added up. So the mean of set B is lower than the mean of set A. Great. All right, let's delete again. What's the median mean? That's a bad choice of word, mean. The median is literally the middle number, the number that's directly in the middle. It's not necessarily going to be the same as the mean. It might be. It's not going to be that often. But the median sits in the middle, as in, let's look at this first. We said set A was the numbers 1, 3, 3, 6, 9, 10. What number's in the middle here? Well, here's me going from left and right. I've got 3 numbers to the left, 3 numbers to the right. Here's the middle of this data. So initially I think, well, do I have a median? Yes, there is always a median. There's no question of which we're going to say no median, no mode maybe, but you always got to get a mean or a median. If you've got numbers, there is an average of those numbers and there is a median of those numbers. What we do here is say, if you end up with your median being in the middle of 2 numbers, you average them, which is the same as finding the mean of them. So you might do it manually. You might work out in your head that 4.5 is halfway between 3 and 6. But let's just do this method. It says sum the scores divided by number of scores. That's a 3 plus 6 over the number of scores is only 2. It's a 9 on 2, which is a 4.5. So the median here for set A is 4.5. Now I can understand thinking, well, hang on, 4.5 isn't even one of the scores. How is it the median score? Well, that's how median is calculated. Yes, if you're asked for the median score of these 6 scores, the median score is 4.5, because that's the number that would have lay in the middle. Okay, so it's more confusing actually. I wish we'd swap set A and set B, because it's much simpler to look at set B. Set B is 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Much easier there to find the middle number. Come in from each side, and 2 from each side, or the third number in from each side, however you want to say it, is 5. There's the median. So if you've got an odd set of numbers, the median is just slap bang in the middle. If I've got 5 numbers, it's the third number. Okay. If I've got 15 numbers, well, we're going to look at a technique soon, but I'll tell you that if I've got 15 numbers, it's going to be the 8th score. We'll work out soon how to know that for sure. But anyway, so that's how we work it out. And if it's an even set of numbers like this, well, for 6 scores, we had to go to the 3rd score and the 4th score and average them. Okay, so there's median. That's why you can see these calcs. We've got a 5 there and a 4.5 there. So there's an intro to mode, mean and median. But let's look at, this is what I was referring to. How do I know if I've got more scores? Like, I know that odd scores and even scores are different, as in, and when I say odd scores, I don't mean scores that are like 1, 3, 5, 7, that they're odd numbers. No, I mean there's an odd number of them. There are 5 scores here. That's what I mean by if I've got an odd number of scores. And the median is easy. The median is slap bang in the middle. Okay, so if I've got an odd number of scores, the median is the middle score, or the n+1th score. Let's make sense of that. n+1th score. I like to look at the trend. If I say number of scores here, and I normally hold up my hand, and I say my number of scores, I've got 5 scores. What score's in the middle? Well, clearly it's a third. Look at your third finger. I think I've got the camera going. So the median is the 3rd score. What if I've got 7 numbers? Where's the middle? Well, it's there. Me putting down my 4th finger shows I've got 3 to the left, 3 to the right. 4th. And we can see the trend. If I put up 9, I'll put it around a thumb and, yep, I've got 4 either side of it. It's the 5th. And a little formula that does that for us is this one. It's saying however many scores, add 1 to that number and then halve it. How many scores is 5? Add 1 is 6. Half 6 is the 3rd score. Whatever the number is, add 1 to it. 7 plus 1 is 8. Halve it is the 4th. Whatever the number is 9, add 1 is 10. Halve it is the 5th. So that little formula, n+1 on 2th score, just tells you which score to go to if you've got lots of scores and you don't want to physically count your way in the middle. Like, say I had, 105 scores. And I had them all laid out, but I didn't want to really go in from each end and find the middle. And you'll see soon, we're going to be able to use this for tables. But anyway, the concept of it, if it's an odd number of scores, and clearly the number 105 is odd, this last digit is odd, so it's odd, well, the middle score will be n+1 on 2th score. This number plus 1 is 106. Halve that. The 53rd score is my median. I'm not saying the number 53 is the median. I don't know what the 53rd score is. The 53rd score could be 286. I don't know. But if I line up all these 105 scores in order and I walk into the 53rd score, whatever that 53rd score is the median of my data. It's the central number. Okay? It's got 52 scores to the left of it. It's got 52 scores to the right of it. It's the 53rd score. So that's the technique for odd numbers. What about for even numbers? Well, it's a bit easier in the way that all we've got to do here is, it might not look easier in this, but let's hold up fingers again. The number of scores. If I held up both my hands and showed 10 numbers, clearly the middle scores are the 5th and 6th. Okay? The average of the 5th and 6th. Oh, curly brackets, that's horrendous. I'm going to find the average or mean of them, same thing. Again, I don't mean what's the average of the numbers 5 and 6, no, I mean find the 5th score, find the 6th score, and average them. Now, so like example, if I just had 1, 3, 3, 5, 6, 9, 7, 2, well, 9, 17, 21, 28, how many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. My middle score would be 1, 2, 3, 4, average of the 5th and 6th scores. And look at, yeah, there's 4 here, there's 4 here. I'm totally right. The average would be, the median would be averaging them. That's better. 6 plus 9 is 15 on 2. My median would be 7.5. Slap bang in the middle. Okay? So this formula says if you've got an even number of scores, like 10 scores, go to the n on 2, which means halve the number. N on 2 is the 5th. N on 2 plus 1 means that same number plus 1. Okay, so if we've got 10 scores, go for half of the number, 5th, plus 1, the 6th. If you've got 20 scores, go for the half, so 20 scores, average the 10th and the 11th. If you've got 100 scores, go for the halfway, the 50th, and the next one, 51st, and average them. So there's our formulas, okay? Odd number of scores was just one central score, add 1 and halve the number of scores. Even we knew was started with 2 scores, the halfway, and the next one, and then find the mean of them. So let's look at the examples we've got here. Delete that. Calculate the median for the following data. Now, it's not in order, and it's got to be in order. That's a good trap for multiple choice questions. Just put in the question, and it's not in order, and you just walk your way into the middle. No, then you'll find any number could be the median if I can have it in any order I want. No, we put it in ascending order, and here I say, well, how many scores are there? There's 17 scores, in other words, it's odd, so I'm going to use this formula, which says 17, add 1 to it, and divide by 2. That's 18 on 2, that's the 9th score, so just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th, the median's 3. Done. The next one, predictably, it's an even set of scores. There are 10 scores, so I'm actually going to want to find the halfway and the next score. I need to put them in order, which I've done here. So I want the 5th and 6th. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the 5th and 6th. And how do I average them? I add them, divide by 2, and get my median. Great. Next page, we're still going to use the same stuff. And it's going to be even more important because we've got lots more data. And if we've got lots of data, I don't really want to line them all up in a line, especially if I've got 50, 100 bits of data. A table becomes more useful. Now, we've still kept the number small here for this example, but let's look at it. There's 15 scores, and here they all are. And what we've done is said, let's put them into a table. Now, let's pretend that tally's not there. All that column is me looking one by one. There's a 3, tally mark, there's a 4, tally mark, there's a 9, no, and there's an 8, there's a 2, there's a 4, there's a 3, there's a 5, this is exhilarating, isn't it? 7 and 8, 7 and 8, there's a 5, 4, 5, 4, and a 6, 6, 1, 6, 6, 1. So the tally column is just, me manually marking it off, and then I just summarize it. I had one tally at 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. Fantastic. So my table has now got a score column. Again, we call the scores X. It's just the standard thing. We say I've got this data, they're X values, that'll do. I've got scores from 1 to 9, but I've got a frequency column. The sum of the frequency column is what I said before. The number of scores you've got is the sum of the frequencies. N equals sigma F, the sum of all the frequencies. Because they add up to 15, of course they do. There were 15 scores. Now look, we've got a new column, Fx, and there's a tiny little dot in there. And a dot in mathematics, well, there's a dot in just normal writing that you put a dot after an approximated word, like approx, it's the word itself, we put a dot there to say I approximated it. F dot x is the other meaning of the dot. It means F times x. It means get your frequency column and times by your x column, which we just said was a score. So that's why the first Fx is 1 by 1. Then we've got 1 by 2 is 2. Then we've got 2 by 3 is 6. 3 by 4 is 12, and so on and so on. I've just made that column by saying, what's F times X? Now, why did I make it? Imagine if I was putting all this in the calculator and I said, look, let's add up all the scores. There's a score 1 plus a 2 plus a 3 plus a 3 plus a 4 plus a 4 plus a 4. that's a bit slow. But if I say, look, I've got 1, 1, and that's worth a total of 1. I've got 1, 2, which is worth 2, but I've got 2 3s, they add up to 6. I've got 3 4s, which add up to 12, and 2 5s, which add up to 10. All the FX column is really doing is making my adding up process simpler. Okay, instead of like, say I had a number, say I had 6 5s. I don't want to go to the calc 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. Let's just call it 6 5s is 30. So we're just saving ourselves some time. So the fx column, f.x column, is to help us add up scores, because it adds up all the individuals in the rows, and then hence the sum of all the scores is the sum of the fx column. So the sum of the fx column equals the sum of all scores. So what do you reckon the fx column is used for? Mean. It's mean where you want to add up all the scores. You only ever do an fx column if you're interested in finding the mean. So they go hand in hand. So you see what we've done down here. We say, okay, clearly we're trying to answer the mean question. And the mean, remember that was x bar, is equal to the sum of all the scores, which is exactly the same as sum of the fx column now, over the number of scores, which we said is the sum of the f column. We said that earlier. Yep, 75 is the sum of all the scores. 15 is how many scores? We've got a mean of 5. That was pretty, all right? Mathematically speaking. And I also like to look at, does that make sense? If the scores range from 1 to 9 and they're fairly evenly distributed, I'm happy with an answer that's 5. I'll be happy with 4, 4.5, 4.2. I'd be happy with any answers saying that my mean score was somewhere 4, 5, 6 or something. If I did a calculation that said my mean score was 10, hopefully you'd see that that's impossible. Scores ranging from 1 to 9 can't have a mean of 10. The mean must lie between the two ends and often in the middle. Okay, so always have a look at your answer and see if it makes sense. But I believe, and that was true, my mean is exactly 5. Great. Then it goes on to say, how am I going to find the median? Well, actually no, let's do a raise. Now I know I explained this graphically on the next page, but well, here we are in person. Let's do it. The median is the middle score. So if I were to write out all of these scores in order, I would just go into the middle, but I don't want to. I mean, here I am doing that manually. But then what I say is on the next page, actually, no, I'll do it manually here. How do I find the middle? Well, first let's say there are 15 scores, so it's an odd number of scores. Remember, hold up one hand. How many scores are in the middle of an odd number of scores? There's only one number that's in the middle, and 5 is a 3. This is the one where we say get the number of scores, 15, add 1 is 16, divided by 2 is 8. The median is the 8th score. That's the score I want to know what it is. And if I don't want to write them out in order, like here I've manually gone to the 8th score, well, let's look at how I can make a column that's going to help me. And this column is already created on the next page, but let's do it here. Now, C.F. I'm not saying it's C.F as in C times F. That just stands for cumulative frequency. Here the dots don't mean times, here the dots are just abbreviated words. So what does a cumulative frequency column mean? Well, clearly it's related to the frequency column, the F column. Cumulative is like the word to accumulate, and that's exactly what I'm going to do to fill in this CF column. So far, how many scores have we accumulated? I've only got one score, so the first row only tells us about one score. Fair enough. The next row only tells us about one more score. So far we've looked at 2 scores. Then we discussed 2 more scores, so in total we've looked at 4. Then we look at 3 more scores, so it's a total of 7. I'm doing a semi-zigzag thing. I said in the first row there's 1 score, so I've got 1 total. Plus the next score gets me to 2. Plus the next 2 scores gets me to 4. Plus the next 3 scores gets me to 7. And so on. Plus 2 is 9. Plus 2 is 11. Plus 1 is 12. Plus 2 is 14, and plus 1 is 15. naturally your last number in the CF column will always be the same as the last score, the total number of scores, okay? Because I've looked from the first score all the way up to the 15th score. Now, in what world is that useful? Let's look at what it tells us. It says the first score was a 1. Great. The second score, well, we added another 2. So the second score was a 2. And then this 4 tells me the third and the fourth scores must have been 3. Because if I've jumped from 2 straight to 4, it means the third and the fourth scores must have been this next score. So the third and fourth scores are 3. And then after that fourth score, the fifth, sixth and the seventh scores, they must all have been 4. The 8th and 9th scores must have been 5, and so on, so on. I've already answered it. I wanted to know what the 8th score was. I don't need to keep reading the CF column. All I want you to go down and say, look, it tells me, and I like to put a line here, it tells me that so far I've looked up to the 7th score, and the 7th score, technically the 5th, 6th and 7th score were all 4s. What's the 8th score? Well, it must be the score after it, because the 8th and 9th scores were both 5. So again, that line tells me up to the 7th scores were the numbers ranging from 1 to 4. The next 2 scores, the 8th and 9th, must have been in this 5 category. Hence the median is 5. That's what I've done on the next page. Much prettier than that. See, I've done all the nice arrows. But all I said was, look, I want the 8th score. And so I went to the 7th, and this is the same equivalent of the line. Up to the 7th score were these scores. These scores. The 8th and 9th were all 5s. So there's the median. The median is 5, which is what I would have done on the next. Oh no, I've summarised it down here. So we get the median is 5. Did I answer what the mode is in this question? Did I just miss it? Am I just reading past it? Okay, it might be in there. Here we go. I just didn't highlight it. The mode, remember the mode is a score that happens the most. And the definition of happens the most is highest frequency. What was the highest frequency here? The highest frequency was 3. Don't fall in the trap thinking, the mode is 3. No, the mode is a score that happened the most. What score happened 3 times? 4 did. The mode is 4. No score happened more than 3 times, or even equal to 3 times. 4 was the only score that happened more than twice. The mode is 4. Alright, well let's walk through this example then and see what we can do. So here's some data, okay, and I haven't written the tally column on there, but clearly we've gone through one by one. We did a tally thing and we worked out, here's the frequency of everything. We've got a range of scores from 12 to 24. Sure, we don't have any 13s, but our lowest score is 12, our highest is 24, and there's all the frequencies. The frequencies add up to 28, which I reckon is true because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 4 grid would contain 28 scores. Looks pretty good to me. The fx column is already done for us. Remember, that was just f times x. 1 12 is 12, 0 13s is 0, 1 14 is 14, and so on. So the total of all my scores is 523. And easy to make mistake here would be to say, well, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I've only got 13 scores. That's not true. I've got one of these, none of these, one of these. That's how many scores I've got. I might have 13 categories of score written on my table, one of which doesn't even happen. But no, I've got 28 scores, the sum of the frequency column. It's always this total divided by this total, 523 on 28, 18.68 given to 2 dp. And again, do I believe it? If I had divided this by the wrong number, I might have got an answer of maybe 25 or something horrible. Do I believe 18.68? Yeah, I'm happy with that. I've got no reason to doubt it. It looks in the middle of the data and I'm stoked. So the mean, I use the fx column. Remember, the median uses a CF column. Now the column's already zigzagged its way down. Remember when you're constructing your own, even cross out the fx column if you want to make sure you don't use it. The first frequency was 1, so we've got 1. Plus 0 is still 1. Plus 1 is 2. Plus 1 is 3. plus 3 is 6. There's the zigzag happening. Let's check. The last score we looked at was a 28 score, and there were 28 scores. Everything's coming up Millhouse. So the median is, well, how many scores do we have? 28 scores. So for even scores, we said we wanted the halfway score and the next score. What did I write it to? I don't know. So I want to know what the 14th score and 15th score is. I'm going to get a ruler. Sick of these. I'm going to get these videos properly produced at some stage, but this is just me. Yeah, I'm messy. I apologise. Hopefully they're still useful. There's a line I've written. That tells me that the 14th score was 18. Ooh, good. I wanted to know that. And then beyond that line, the 15th and 16th scores must both have been the next score. So both the 15th and 16th scores were 19. I just want to know what's the 14th and what's the 15th. And I know the average of adding those two together and halving it will be the number right in the middle of them. That's my median, as we've done here. And the only other thing to answer is what's the mode? Well, what's the highest number that happened in the frequency column? 5. What score happened 5 times? 17 did. 17 happened more than anything else. That's us. Mode, mean, median, frequency columns, FX column, CF column. I'm just going to confirm that I'm at the end. Yeah, okay. Hope that helped. See ya.